Let's turn to the European Union because they have agreed more sanctions against Russia over its war against Ukraine, targeting its financial and energy sectors. The price cap on Russian crude oil will be slashed to just over $47 a barrel. President Zelensky has hailed the new sanctions as, quote, essential and timely. The Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the EU was striking at the heart of Russia's war machine. Well, let's go to our Europe reporter in Brussels, Sofia Betitsa. And Sofia, tell us a little more then about this round of sanctions, because this is the 18th round, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. And it wasn't easy to get there for the EU. Lots of negotiations in Brussels this week. But today we heard from the EU Foreign Policy Chief, Kaja Kallas, saying that this is one of the toughest sanctions packages that the EU has approved yet. As you said, they target, among other things, the energy exports, the banking sector, the military industry. What is new is that they also impose a price cap on Russian oil. And that's significant. That sort of brings that price about 15% below market value. The reason why it's significant is that Russia really relies on exporting oil and gas as a form of revenue. And so Brussels is hoping that by sort of decreasing its reliance on Russian fossil fuels, it will weaken the Kremlin's ability to finance the war. Now, as to whether these sanctions will work, well, I think not in the short term. As you said, Matthew, this is the 18th round of sanctions. Russia is still attacking Ukraine on a daily basis. And Russia has adapted to sanctions like these. It's found ways to trade with other countries, exporting oil to China, for example, and to India. But I think this is as far as Brussels is willing to go for the moment. They say that the sanctions will have an impact over time, weakening Russia's economy. But they are unlikely, very, very unlikely to stop missile attacks or drone attacks in the short term.
Sophia, thanks very much live there in Brussels. Let's continue with this with Isaac Levy, who's from the Centre for Research on Energy and Clean Air, which has been tracking Russia's oil and gas exports for some time now through the course of this war. And welcome here to the programme. Your assessment of this latest round of sanctions.
Thank you very much. Yes, so the 18 sanctions package are significant, as mentioned. It's great to see a lowering the price cap, but this is only likely to have a big impact on slashing Russian export revenues if we see greater enforcement of the price cap policy. We know that the policy has been evaded, and the measures enable it relatively easy for traders to falsely report the price of the oil. These are opaque companies that are registered in countries that do not implement sanctions, and they will write these attestation documents promising compliance with the price cap that are then passed on to, for example, the largest maritime insurers based in London. So since the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, about half of all Russian oil has been transported on those tankers that are owned or insured in the West. So this is a measure that we very much welcome, a lowering of the price cap. But what we do need to see is greater enforcement. There are two other areas.
Well, before you get on to those two other areas, sorry to dive in. Tell me more then about the gaps that Russia has been able to exploit over the years then on this, during this war.
Well, one of them is to try and avoid reliance on Western-owned or insured tankers to transport its oil. It used to be about 90% reliant on Western-owned or insured vessels to transport its oil. It then decided to buy what's called shadow tankers, so those tankers perhaps bought on secondary markets with poor insurance or of old age and therefore a lack of maritime compliance. And we at Korea estimate around 600 shadow tankers transporting Russian oil since 2024. Now the EU has sanctioned 100 new vessels, totaling up to over 400, which is significant because when the EU sanctions a vessel, we've seen the amount of oil they're able to transport fall by around a third. On top of that, Russia has invested around 14 billion euros in buying these old tankers, which become less effective after they've been sanctioned.
I'm just going to put onto the screen a tracker that your organisation actually runs, and it shows how much the EU has spent on Russian fossil fuels during the course of the war. And it is extraordinary because it's been reported a while back, but it's worth underlining that that amount outstrips the financial amount that the EU has actually spent helping Ukraine. It's almost contradictory.
Yeah, of course. And this is why we believe the EU, along with its allies in the UK and the US, need to go further to hit the Russian energy sector, stop financing the war, and as you mentioned, sending more money to Russia than financial aid to Ukraine. There's a big announcement today that the EU plans to ban the import of oil products made from Russian crude in India and Turkey and those non-sanctioning countries. We very much hope that the UK will follow suit, and this oil is around 6 billion euros in value that is getting sent back to Russia.
Just in 2 sentences, if you would, do you think any of this will stop China, India taking the Russian oil?
Yes, I think it will have increased pressure on them to stop buying as much Russian oil if they want to be able to export to those key markets such as Europe. And we very much hope that the UK and the EU, the US, will follow suit.
Isaac, great to talk to you. Thanks very much for giving us that insight. Thanks for your time.